Hello, are we here? Are we ready? Let's begin. Hello, the internet. I am your friendly neighborhood Saruman, and welcome to this very special early episode of Torn Book Club. Today we will be discussing primarily the new movie, The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. A number of us Torn staffers had the opportunity to see this movie last weekend, and Warner Brothers had a bit of had an embargo on posting any reviews or feedback until until what was supposed to be today. Today was supposed to be the day that the embargo lifted, but they lifted it earlier this weekend, and the internet has been flooded with reviews, and so a lot of us scrambled to get our reviews up and posted and online as quickly as we could. And as of now, there are 3 reviews on TheOneRing.net. There's one from QuickBeam, one from Keeley, and one from myself. And there are some more that will be coming in the days to come. But I've been reading through the comments and the reactions to these reviews, and a lot of people are echoing the same sentiments that we all seem to have. We had a rather heated discussion after the movie ended last week that I won't go too much into because, of course, we had all seen the movie, so we were very freely discussing many plot elements that I will keep out of this discussion today. This is going to be a spoiler-free review, and what I mean by spoiler-free is anything that is not specifically in the book The Hobbit or in any of Tolkien's appendices, or anything that hasn't been explicitly shown in the trailers or online clips from the movie will not be discussed today. We will have a much more in-depth review or a more in-depth discussion next week that will have spoilers, because at that point I think it's safe to assume that most people watching today will have seen the movie by then, since it opens this Friday. Oh, it's okay, I stole the One Ring if you haven't read my review yet. A lot of what I'm going to be saying here is going to be echoing my review that went up this morning. I'll be going into some more details, and I invite you all to ask me questions about things you want to know. I will try to keep my answers spoiler-free, so if you're asking me something very specific, I may not be able to answer that right now, but next week we're going to be having a much more in-depth discussion on the movie, the plot points, and the nature of adaptation, which is going to be the main crux of a lot of the discussions that I think are going to be coming from this movie. So, pardon me, a little morning coffee. I'm doing this one a little bit early, or actually a lot early this week, because I actually have a previous engagement during the time when we normally do this show. I'm in a holiday show in Pasadena. It's the one time of the year that I actually act, and so I apologize, and I thank you for bearing with me while we do this early show. So before we get into The Desolation of Smaug, which I know is why you all are here, but we do have a number of other things that we do here on Torn Book Club, and I'd like to get those through before we get into the meat of discussing The Desolation of Smaug. First of all, since this is a book club, we actually do have a book of the month. Last month it was Darkling by K.M. Rice. These are books that you can purchase on Amazon uh, and read for yourself, and at the end of the month, we'll be having a discussion on said book. This month, since it's December, we will be reading The Letters of Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien himself. I personally have not read these yet, so I'm looking forward to diving into them and discussing them with you when at the end of the month. Also, we have our contest, Rewrite Tolkien, where we invite you, the fans, um, to submit your own versions of stories from Tolkien, The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, whatever. Ustreamer78, I will be discussing Smaug. Do not worry. Here's a little tease of what Smaug looks like. This is a model of the plane that Air New Zealand unveiled last weekend with an image of Smaug on the side. And I can tell you right now, as cool as this image is, it does not do him justice when you see him in the movie itself. So, back to the Rewrite Tolkien contest. Yes, Temple, I will be choosing longer books. Don't worry. I'm trying to pick books that I think most people will be able to read in a month because we all have various schedule conflicts. So, anyway, our Rewrite Tolkien contest is a contest that allows fans to submit stories from Tolkien written in the voice of another famous author. Just a fun writing exercise that a lot of us can do, and we've been getting some really great responses. And this past month, in November, our contest was rewrite scenes from The Hobbit in the style of J.K. Rowling, and we got a lot of really good responses. And we did pick a winner, which was announced on TheOneRing.net last week. And the grand prize for that winner is, of course, they have their entry read online, which I will do for you right now. Don't worry, we will be getting to the Desolation of Smaug review. This is, I'm not stalling. I'm getting through business. So our winner for November was a piece called Staff Magic by Chris Baker of Oxfordshire, UK. And it's a fun, short piece, which, let me bring it up, I will read for you. I should have done this before I went online. I apologize. This will take 1 minute. Here we go. So, here is our winner for Rewrite Tolkien, again, entitled Staff Magic by Chris Baker of Oxfordshire. Professor Dumbledore smiled around the packed Great Hall of Hogwarts. I am sure that you are as eager as I am to start upon our excellent start of year feast, he said. But I have one more announcement to make before we do. I am delighted to say that we have been able to arrange a short additional Defense Against the Dark Arts module this year on the subject of staff magic. It will run for the first part of the term, and with its own exam, worth an extra grade for your Defense Against the Dark Arts OWL. All students wishing to attend this course should see Professor McGonagall after the feast. I am sure there will be a lot of interest from those of you who are academically ambitious. Harry thought Dumbledore's twinkling eyes were fixed on Hermione, or would feel they might be making practical use of the subject. The course will be given by a most exciting visiting professor, none other than Gandalf the Grey. At this point, there was a buzz of excited chatter among the students. Professor Gandalf has also kindly agreed to treat us to one of his famous fireworks shows on November 5th. "Who's Gandalf the Grey?" asked Harry in a low voice. Hermione gave him one of her concerned, kind and yet superior looks. "Haven't you read the books or seen the films?" she asked. "He's nearly as famous as the Muggle in the Muggle world as the magical one, though Muggles think he's a fictional character, of course." Harry felt like pointing out that the only books on Privet Drive were cookery books, and that if the Dursleys went to see a film, they'd certainly leave him behind, most likely locked in the cupboard. But the moment was lost as Ron burst out excitedly from opposite him. "Gandalf! The guy's an absolute legend! Come on! Complete celebrity! Muse and Speller and even a t-shirt. Muse and Speller even have a t-shirt of him." "Gandalf! Gandalf!" intoned Percy pompously, apparently also trying to answer Harry's question. "If you had heard only a quarter of what I've heard about him, and I have only heard very little there is to hear." "Here, look, Gandalf's on a Muse and Speller t-shirt," said Ron, risking tipping everyone else on his side on the table of their shared bench as he half stood to wrestle a battered Muse and Speller t-shirt catalog from his trouser pocket. Muse and Speller t-shirts had moving pictures and were the height of cool. Several Gryffindors leant over to see. Turning a bit pink at the ears and shooting a covert look to Hermione, Ron leafed quickly past the much-thumbed pages of the shirts, featuring the witch singer Curvacia Oogleworthy, industriously looking for the Gandalf garment. Hermione wasn't watching, though. "It would be wonderful to study with such a very famous teacher, of course," she was saying in Harry's one ear, while Percy continued to try to fill his other ear with a long account of Gandalf's exploits. While Percy droned on a good deal about a ring and a Dark Lord and something about the end of the world, Hermione continued, "But I've heard that staff magic is very difficult, especially for people who are good with the wand, and I'm quite worried that so little time to prepare for the exam at the end." "Here it is! See Gandalf!" Ron triumphantly held up the t-shirt picture, a powerful old bearded man standing on a narrow bridge with flames behind him. The t-shirt had a short, moving clip in which Gandalf beat his staff on the bridge and cried out as he cast some vastly powerful spell. Hermione had gone pale, her knuckle in her mouth, looking aghast at the Gandalf t-shirt, suspecting one of Fred and George's unkinder tricks. Ron looked hastily down, but it was just a picture of Gandalf. He stared at Hermione in confusion. It took Harry a moment to realize what had upset his great obsessed friend. Under the picture of the stern, shouting wizard on the bridge, the t-shirt bore the caption, "You cannot pass." So there we go. That was our winner for the Rewrite Tolkien contest. So that was a fun story. Nice little crossover. What happened? Oh, there we go. It was a fun little crossover. We had a lot of good submissions this month, and we have another contest that is running in December. Since, again, it is Christmas time, we will be doing The Hobbit in the style of Charles Dickens. This should be fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing all your submissions. You can submit them to rewrite_Tolkien_contest at TheOneRing.net. Your entries must be 500 to 2,000 words. Submit them only in the body of the email. We won't be accepting any attachments. And please include your full name and your location so that we can give you credit when and if you win. There is only one submission per contestant. Do not post anything that you submit to us on any of our social media or our message boards. And anybody who wins, please stand aside for the next 12 months so that other people can have a chance to win. So that is Rewrite Tolkien. And now, thank you for bearing with me. We've gone through the business of the day, and now we can get to what you all have come here for. The review of The Desolation of Smaug. So, as I said, we have a... Oh, I'm getting a text here. Okay. So, sorry about that. I will begin by telling you my very basic general thoughts of the movie. To put it bluntly, I loved this movie. I thought it was a fantastic addition. I thought it expanded on the story in many wonderful ways. I thought that the action was top-notch. It didn't drag. It didn't. The pace was much faster than An Unexpected Journey. There were points in An Unexpected Journey where I did sort of feel like we should pick up the pace a little bit. We need to get going. There's a whole adventure that we need to get to. Why are we still in the Shire? Come on, move, 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 move. In The Desolation of Smaug, there is nothing like that. If anything, I felt it went a little too fast, and we didn't have as much time to linger on certain things or focus on certain things or contextualize things as much as I personally would have liked. But that isn't to say that it didn't do a fantastic job with what was there. With that said, we can sort of go through. I like to focus personally on the characters because, yes, this is the book club. And yes, I realize that I'm doing a movie review on a book club show, and I'm doing that because this is an adaptation of one of our favorite books. I have a copy here of my copy of The Hobbit. I do have a copy of the annotated Hobbit, but I couldn't find it in time for the show. It may still be in storage, so I have this version here, which has an absolutely terrible cover of a very dumpy and confused-looking Bilbo and a golem that looks like some sort of gremlin. It's not my favorite cover, but that's the only copy that I could find in time. This whole thing was rather hastily put together. I'm doing this on the book club show because, first of all, it's a live show, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do a live review of The Desolation of Smaug, as opposed to the plethora of reviews that will be going up on TheOneRing.net and have gone up on TheOneRing, including my own. So, getting back to the movie, I thought that it was a wonderful movie. I was drawn in immediately. It has a fantastic opening scene that really sets the tone for the entire movie. I won't spoil what that is, but I thought it was very well done, and it helped to give us some context into Thorin's motivations. And then it ends, basically, again, I won't spoil, but it ends in a way that makes me realize that the next year, until there and back again, is going to be a very long and very painful wait. So, some people are asking about Beorn, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some characters that I liked, and try to go through the story, try to do this uh, parallel to the story points in the movie. So, of course, that begins with Beorn. Uh, as uh, as you can see, this image here is of Gandalf and Beorn in his bear form, which I will say right now, this scene, this image here, is not in the movie. Uh, this is one of those instances where I feel that perhaps something was cut out. Um, and that's sort of how I felt with all of Beorn. I thought he was a very well done character. Um, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this name right. Mikhail Persbrandt does an excellent performance. I felt that Beorn himself as a character was a bit darker than I imagined him in the book. That isn't to say that I didn't like him. Um, but again, it sets the tone for this being a much darker installment in the trilogy than An Unexpected Journey was. Um, there isn't as much whimsical levity as there was in the book, and the scene itself felt kind of short. Um, I'm sure that there will be much more Beorn in the extended edition. I did feel that he kind of got the short end of the stick as far as development and screen time went in this movie. I did like him very much. I thought the design of Beorn's house is fantastic. Many of you may have seen a number of us staffers posing in Beorn's throne that was on display at the Book of New Zealand event this past weekend. Um, it is that cool. So yeah, Beorn, I liked him. I wish there was more of him, and hopefully there will be in the extended edition. So moving on from Beorn, we go into Mirkwood. And I won't talk too much about the confrontation with the spiders, except to say that I liked it. I thought it was really cool. And what we see in this also is the beginning of Bilbo's own personal corruption by the ring. Now, corruption is a theme that runs very strongly throughout this entire movie, particularly with Bilbo and the ring, and with Thorin and the Arkenstone. Now, these are two very different types of corruption, where Bilbo feels that he is losing control of himself, or the ring is controlling him more, whereas Thorin is becoming increasingly desperate to claim the Arkenstone for himself, and this ties back to this sort of sickness that Thror and Thrain both suffered from after uncovering the Arkenstone initially. And we begin to see a lot of that coming out in Thorin, which we will also find kind of sadly ironic when we realize, when we see sort of the basis of why Thorin even began the quest, which I won't spoil here, but it does sort of make Thorin seem a little bit more tragic. And this I liked, and Richard Armitage did a great job of portraying this. Martin Freeman is at the top of his game as Bilbo. Was there much more of Mirkwood except the spiders? Yes, there was. And I'm not going to get too much into that because we don't see a lot of it in the trailers. There are parts of it in the book, and particularly in the book in Mirkwood, we see the company becoming sort of distracted and suffering from hallucinations. And this is exceptionally well done and is very trippy, and I thought it was fantastic. It actually does throw you a little bit. So can you tell us if there were animals serving food? You're speaking about Beorn's scene, and that is a scene in the book. Sadly, it is not a scene in the movie. We do not see the animals serving food, at least in the theatrical cut. There may be some in the extended edition. I have no idea what has been cut or what will be added later. Ustreamer57 is asking, how does the movie begin? I can't say. And the reason I can't say is because it is a scene that is wholly unique to the movie. It sets the tone for the movie, um, I think, very well. I'm not going to say anything about what it is. You're just going to have to wait and see. Okay, another one. How was the action? I felt that AUJ was a bit childish in terms of how orcs were killed, no blood, etc., and the fights... Are the fights darker and more serious in DOS as well, like LOTR? Yes. The action in this is much more intense. I I will say, like, I agree that in An Unexpected Journey, the action scenes did feel a little video gamey at times, particularly with the escape from Goblin Town, and even when they get captured by the goblins, it felt very video gamey. This one feels much more cinematic in its action. There are lots of fantastic stunts when we see the elves getting into it with the orcs. It's all very well done. It's very acrobatic. Um, there are lots of various sequences. Again, things I can't go into too much. Um, uh, Ustreamer78, can you talk about Smaug and his death? I will get to Smaug. Don't worry, I'm saving Smaug. Um, after seeing the movie, are you optimistic about its performance at the box office worldwide? Absolutely. I do think there's been a lot of hype about this movie, and deservedly so. It is a fantastic movie. A lot of the initial reviews that have been coming out over the weekend have been stellar, and they really deserve to be stellar. This is a very well done movie. Um, I will say, as far as well done it is, this movie is going to cause a lot of controversy among fans, and this is where I think a lot of lines are going to be drawn in the sand, and a lot of different camps are going to spring up amongst fans. And I've already seen this online in the comments for our reviews. There are going to be those who will see a lot of the changes from the movies. Yes, Temple, I do believe one of the reviews does talk about how the film starts, and if you want to read that review, I believe it might be Quick Beams that talks about it. It could also be Keely's. Both of them are rather spoiler heavy, and you are free to read those if you want. I won't be talking about that here though. Does Azog get more depth as a villain than in the previous installment? Actually, yes. I felt that Azog as a character was much stronger this time around. He's not in it as much, but because in the movie Azog pretty much gets replaced by Bolg roughly about halfway through the movie for reasons that I won't go into. But Azog is still a part of the story, and I thought that what they do is they sort of bring him more into the darker fold, and Azog really does sort of meet the challenge, and he becomes a bit more sinister and a bit cooler, more calculating, a bit more in on the bigger plot, rather than just an orc who was chasing Thorin merely for revenge. And I liked Azog. I thought he was a much more fleshed out character, even though he has less screen time than in the last movie. So getting back to where are we here? So let's try to get back on track with the movie. Where we are in Mirkwood, and so let's go to the elves, because this is part of where I think a lot of the controversy that will erupt among fans is going to begin. So let's talk about our three main elf characters. Our first is the Elf King, Thranduil, played by Lee Pace. I thought Lee Pace was fantastic. Now, I have loved Lee Pace ever since Pushing Daisies. And I knew as soon as he was cast as Thranduil that he would turn in a fantastic performance, and he does. Um, they do expand his character more. We do see a lot of his interaction with Legolas and Tauriel. Um, and we also see a lot of him. We get a really great scene between him and Thorin. As we know in the books, there's a scene where Thorin talks to Thranduil and pretty much tries to weasel his way out of being imprisoned. And it's a very tense scene in the book, and in this, there is a lot more history between the two of them because we have the whole story of Thranduil abandoning the dwarves after Smaug attacks. Um, okay, we're going back to Beorn a little bit here. How large was Beorn? He's actually very big. He's taller than Gandalf. He's definitely taller than the dwarves. There is a reason in the Book of New Zealand set that Beorn's throne is so huge. He's a very big guy. Um, so, uh, so where was I? Thranduil. Um, there's a lot of backstory between Thranduil and Thorin because of Thranduil abandoning Erebor when Smaug attacks. And there's definitely a lot of tension between them, but we also get a bit more insight into why Thranduil abandoned them. And there actually is a pretty good and legitimate reason. And I won't say why, it actually is rather shocking. And while I don't know as much of the appendices history, I don't know if this motivation jibes with what Tolkien wrote. But as far as the movie is concerned, I thought it worked very well. Um, yeah. When Thorin walks towards Azog in An Unexpected Journey, the Nazgul theme plays. Do we get an explanation for that in DOS, or was that just a coincidence? I think it's just a coincidence, really. Um, we do we do have a lot of Thorin getting darker and more desperate and succumbing to this gold sickness. Um, but I wouldn't say that we have any. But I wouldn't say that he goes like Sauron dark. If anybody is being corrupted by Sauron or that type of darkness, it's Bilbo. Um, I I still am rather befuddled as to why the Nazgul theme plays in that scene in Unexpected Journey, but so be it. I didn't think it detracted from it in any way. We don't really get too much follow-up on that this time around. Um, in fact, in this movie, Thorin and Azog never meet face-to-face again. Because Azog has another thing he's working on while Thorin and company continue pressing on forward to the Lonely Mountain. Um, were there any funny scenes? Yes, there were. Um, I I won't say too much about them because I feel that they're too fun to be spoiled. I will say, however, Bomber comes out looking like a hero in this movie in the best possible way. Without a word of dialogue, all action, he is absolutely fantastic, and I'm hoping that by the time of a Comic-Con, I can have a t-shirt that says, Bomber is my hero, because seriously, he rocks, man. Let's see. Could the Nazgul theme with Thorin relate more to Azog being in on the bigger story? Um, that's a good point, Tim Dolph. I would agree with that, except for the fact that the Nazgul theme doesn't start playing until Thorin raises up and begins his confrontation with Azog. Um, was there any music you noticed that did not fit this time, or was it reused? Well, I mean, there are certainly the themes that you hear over and over again, like the Shire theme. I thought it was done in very good context. The Lake Town theme, I thought was really cool. Now, there is a particular theme that goes with a particular character relationship in this movie that is not anywhere in uh, it's not anywhere in the books, and I'm not going to talk about it here, but it is a lovely musical piece that has lyrics written by Philippa Boyens. I can't even say what they are because that would be a spoiler. But uh, the music I felt worked really well this time around. I actually want to get the soundtrack to this one. Um, is Smaug influenced by the Necromancer slash Sauron in the movie? I wouldn't say influenced, but he's definitely in on it. He understands what's going on, I think, a lot more than is portrayed in the book. Um, so back to Thranduil. I thought that Lee Pace was fantastic. We saw like a little bit of him in An Unexpected Journey, but no real big scenes with him. And in this one, he really has his big scenes. And what we see most is that Thranduil is kind of a stick in the mud. He's he's very set in his old ways. The Woodland realm itself is very isolationist, and Thranduil definitely has that isolationist attitude. He would rather close his gates to the outside world than become involved in the greater doings of Middle Earth. And again, there is a reason for this that I won't go into here. Smaug says in one of the trailers, "The darkness is coming." Does that have anything to do with him knowing of Sauron? It is certainly possible. Like I said, Smaug seems to know a lot more in this movie than he does in the books. And I think that's all to his credit, but I'm going to save that for when we actually get to Smaug in the review. So let's move on to the next elf character, and this is, let's see, let's do Legolas. Yes, we have Legolas back. What? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat here. What version of the film did you see? Was it 3D or high frame rate? Okay, I'll tell you right now. The version that I saw was not the high frame rate, but it was in 3D, and I thought the 3D was much better this time around. Last time, I sort of felt like the depth in the wider shots for in the 3D kind of stopped at a certain point, and it looked like there was some depth, and then everything just sort of ended at a background painting. This time, the depth goes much further. Things pop out in a much more subtle way. Overall, I thought the 3D worked much better this time around. I haven't seen it in the high frame rate yet. I will be seeing it in high frame rate on this weekend at the midnight show. So possibly next week we'll be able to discuss that a little bit more. Ustreamer78, are you getting the soundtrack? Yes, I am getting the soundtrack. I thought this was a fantastic soundtrack. So Legolas, back to Legolas, our favorite woodland elf. There was some grumbling amongst fans when it was announced that Orlando Bloom would be returning to play Legolas in these movies. I felt it worked contextually because he is a prince of the Woodland Realm. He would have been in Mirkwood when Thorin and company came through, and I thought it was perfectly fine for him to be in this movie. Having said that, the Legolas that we see in this movie is very different from the Legolas that we see in Lord of the Rings. Uh, I, Josh, you mentioned in your review that Legolas seemed a bit two-dimensional. Can you elaborate? I am about to do so just right now. Very good timing, Temple. Um, Legolas, I felt, I wouldn't say he was two-dimensional, but he was definitely a character who hit. Legolas is very much a Prince of Mirkwood in this, and he's somewhat subservient to his father, or he's deferential to his father. So he's very on board with the idea of Mirkwood being isolationist. There's a point where, and we've seen this clip online, and it was shown at the fan event a few weeks ago, where Thranduil orders the gates to the Woodland Realm closed. And Legolas is perfectly fine with this, and he's willing to go along with it. He's just as isolationist. He doesn't want to deal with the outside world as much. Um, there isn't much love or affection between Legolas and Thranduil, and nor would there be because Thranduil is not that kind of character, and Legolas is more like a top lieutenant in his army. Um, but what's interesting is, and we should move on from that uh, to the more controversial elf, because this ties into that, and that is, of course, Tariel, played by Evangeline Lilly. There was an uproar, a huge uproar, when they announced that there would be a completely new elf character, a woman played by Evangeline Lilly, named Tariel. Who was this character? What would she be? Why is she here? What is she doing? Well, um, things have come out over time. I will say that I was much more on board with Tariel early on than I think most people were. Um, I I love Evangeline Lilly. I've met her a few times. She is one of the sweetest people you will ever meet. All that aside, I thought that yes, a lot of people were saying that The Hobbit is very much a sausage fest. So much so that in An Unexpected Journey we have sight gags involving literal sausages. Um, were there parts where it seemed it was cut short, where they might expand scenes in the story in the extended edition? Yes. I do believe that there were many instances here where I felt that something was missing. Nothing that like detracted from a scene, but um, there were elements I felt like there's probably more explanation to this. There's probably more context to this. And so I'm actually very much looking forward to the extended edition of The Desolation of Smaug. I think much more so than I was An Unexpected Journey. Um, so, so anyway, back to Tariel and the controversy that sprung up around her. Um, I I am one of those people who loves kick-ass heroine female characters, and so to know that there was going to be one in The Desolation of Smaug, I was very excited about it. Um, After seeing the scenes in the trailers, I got even more excited about it, and I have to say, when all was said and done, when I saw her in the movie, Tariel was a great character. She blended in very seamlessly. Um, she worked exceptionally well with the story that was being told, in more ways than one. Some I can go into, some I can't. I thought that her ability to, because she's not really as much of an isolationist as Thranduil is or Legolas is, and she's more willing to see the bigger picture, and even more so than that, more importantly than that, she's willing to act on it, even in defiance of her king. And we do have, this is alluded to in the trailers, that Legolas has some affection for Tauriel. And this is true. and I feel that his affection for her is ultimately going to open his heart to her and to her ideals, which go way beyond just the woodland realm, and to the world as a whole. And so that she'll be sort of the catalyst that causes this transformation from an isolationist Legolas into a worldly Legolas that we see in Lord of the Rings. And I'm very curious to see how that plays out in the next movie. Uh, uh, I yes, okay. So I won't get into there. I won't be distracted by the chat too much. I'm sorry, folks. So um, now I believe we did get a few questions in email. Let me see if I can bring that up real quick. I got a couple from Johnny, who I believe, I hope you're in the chat, Johnny. How does the tone of Desolation of Smaug fit with An Unexpected Journey and the Lord of the Rings movies? Has Peter Jackson delivered on his promise that the Hobbit movies will atmospherically get closer to what we know from the Lord of the Rings the further the story progresses? Absolutely. As I said before, this is a much darker movie. There was a lot more there's a lot more levity and lightheartedness in An Unexpected Journey. The Desolation of Smaug is much darker. We get more into the quest. There's more peril. There are some fantastic reveals, and yeah, this is definitely becoming. This is definitely a transition from the lighter tone of An Unexpected Journey into the darker tone that we'll ultimately see in The Lord of the Rings. Second question, does the character Azog get more depth as a villain, and do we get to know more about him and his motive for hunting the company? I discussed that a little bit earlier. Yes, we do. I thought that Azog, I won't repeat myself too much, but yes, I enjoyed Azog a lot more this time around. Where did I get the Smaug plane? I got this from Air New Zealand, actually. Me and Quickbeam and Feely were at the unveiling of the Smaug plane at LAX this past weekend, and we got gift bags, and within the gift bag was this beauty. So now this holds a place of pride on my bookshelf, but now it's on my coffee table for all of you to see. Strong female characters who maintain their femininity rather than just acting sexy is how I imagine Tauriel to be. Yes, that is a very good analysis and hope for Tauriel, and it is absolutely true. There is something of a romance going on with Tauriel, a bit of a love triangle, but never once is she a damsel in distress. Never once is she confused by it. She's a very much a go with her gut kind of character, and she's a doer rather than a thinker and a feeler. No, she's very much a feeler, but her feelings are for the world at large rather than for any one specific person. Having said that, there is some budding romance relationship stuff going on here, but it never detracts from her character, and that's what I feel makes Tauriel such a strong character, is that she's very fixated on the bigger picture, and she almost drags Legolas kicking and screaming into it, and that may be too strong. I think it's more that Legolas is infatuated with her, and so therefore follows her, and in the process will end up sort of expanding his own knowledge and his own compassion for the world. You are comparing DOS very much with Lord of the Rings, but is the film on par with that trilogy as well? Well, it can never really be as epic as the Lord of the Rings because, quite frankly, the stakes are never going to be as high as they are in the Lord of the Rings. Having said that, the stakes are definitely higher in the Hobbit movies than they are in the Hobbit book. There is because what we're seeing beyond just the quest is Sauron's rise to power, or Sauron's eventual return, and so there are higher stakes in this, but it's never going to reach the heights of the high stakes that we have in Lord of the Rings, and so therefore this will always feel like a precursor, as it should. It shouldn't try to be the Lord of the Rings, and I don't think that it is trying to be the Lord of the Rings. It's trying to be its own thing, but also being a movie that is entertaining and that keeps the audience engaged and also has stakes high enough that you do care about these characters and you do care about their journey. Um, and so I do feel that it works very well. Do we see Frodo again? No, we don't. I have a feeling that we may see Frodo again at the end of There and Back Again as kind of like a bookend to what we saw at the beginning of An Unexpected Journey. And somebody asked earlier if we see Gollum at all in this movie. No, we don't. They've kept true to the book, and the only scene with Gollum is the Riddles in the Dark scene in An Unexpected Journey, and it is kind of sad that we won't see Gollum ever again in these movies, but I thought Riddles in the Dark was a great note to go out on, and yeah, I loved Gollum. Could we then go on with Bard, Smaug, and the Necromancer? Yes. Yes, I've talked about Tauriel long enough. I love Tauriel. I hope you will love Tauriel. She's probably going to be creating a lot of controversy among fans. I do believe that I'm looking forward to seeing more of her and of Legolas and everybody else in the next movie. What do the 3D glasses look like? I actually have the special collectible 3D glasses for the Desolation of Smaug right here. These are, they actually have a dwarven sword on the side, and we're giving out a whole bunch of these at various line parties. I've got a whole bunch of these for our line party out here in Los Angeles at the Chinese Theater. Now these glasses only work with Real D 3D, so that doesn't mean you can't hang on to it as a keepsake, because these are some wonderful glasses. So so yeah, those are the 3D glasses. Moving on from the elves, we then have the escape from Mirkwood, the barrel riding scene. Which I'll touch on briefly because there's a lot of it that is not in the books. Of course, in the book, the escape from Mirkwood in the barrels is very leisurely and without incident. In the movies, not so much. There is a big chase scene. There is a big action sequence. And I feel that this helps to keep the pace going. I thought it worked very well. It didn't feel as video gamey as the escape from Goblin Town did in An Unexpected Journey. Oh my God, we got someone from South Africa here. Welcome. Very excited to see the new Hobbit movie. I've even made a wizard cloak and staff to wear when I go to the screening. Also, thanks for chatting about the movie. Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for joining us. And please post pictures of your costume when you go to the screening. We all love seeing fans in costume and getting all excited about these movies. So, pardon me. So the barrel riding scene, um, I thought keeps the pace going, keeps it very keeps the tension high. There is some levity in this. There are some action scenes that just sort of make you go, "Oh, come on!" But you know what? I just went along with it. This one did a much better job of suspending disbelief on that than An Unexpected Journey did. Uh, how is the High Fells? I always felt Nazgul having tombs quite illogical. I don't want to talk too much about the High Fells, just because most of what is seen there is not in the books and is only shown a little bit in the in the trailers and the previews. So I kind of want to keep that one a little bit more shrouded for when you see the movie. Um, there isn't a lot of time spent in the High Fells, I will say that much. Um, I don't know too much about the backstory of the Nazgul, so whether or not they would have tombs, honestly, other people will probably know better than I whether or not that jives. Um, uh, I felt the worst scenes in An Unexpected Journey were the most childish ones, such as the ones with smoke coming out of Radagast's ears. Do we get those kinds of moments in DOS as well? Maybe, but not so much. Um, there's definitely more of a maturity to this. Like I said, there are some scenes that sort of make you go, oh please, sort of make you roll your eyes a little bit. But they're few and far between. Um, I didn't feel like there was anything. It didn't feel as distracting with the lightheartedness this time as it did in An Unexpected Journey. And you know, when putting it all in context, I sort of felt that the lightheartedness in An Unexpected Journey needed to be there so that we can more plainly see this transition from a lighter, happier world into a darker, more tense world that we'll see in Lord of the Rings. And I think that The Desolation of Smaug, as the second installment in this, does an excellent job of creating that transition. Uh, is there a place where I can buy the glasses online? I'm sure there are. I will look for them for you, and I will try to put some online. There may already be some articles on TheOneRing with links. I don't know. I'll check for you. Uh, did, did you feel they jumped the shark at any point? I will say this right now. No. No, I did not feel that that this movie jumped the shark in any way. There are many people out there who are going to disagree with me on this, particularly by the end of the movie. It worked for me. It may not work for everybody. I thought that it was excellent. I thought that it put a good cap on the movie, gave us a good cliffhanger. Um, Again, not going into details on all of that, but in no way did I feel that it had jumped the shark or that we had suddenly gone into Star Wars prequel territory. Um, this whole movie worked for me, start to finish. So no, I am firmly in the camp that this movie works. It didn't jump the shark. It didn't do anything unnecessary. It didn't do anything weird. Um, okay, Denethod is asking, is the drug scene in Mirkwood ridiculous like that, or does it fit well? I thought it fit excellently well. It's trippy, but really cool. It actually does a very good job of sort of drawing you into the hallucinations that everybody is experiencing in some very unique and creative ways. It actually sort of, like, they made me sort of like take a second and go, oh, whoa, oh, that's what's happening, that's cool. Um, was Dol Guldur scary enough? Does Gandalf have badass moments? Yes to both. Um, I won't go into details with that because a lot of this is stuff that was created specifically for the movie, even though it is derived from the appendices. But I thought Gandalf in Dol Guldur um, was tremendous. It all built up to a fantastic moment, which I won't even begin to spoil here. Um, but the payoff totally works. It was a fantastic payoff that actually gave me chills. Um, so we've gone through Beorn, we've gone through Mirkwood, we've gone through the barrel riding scene. So now we're on to Lake Town, and that brings us to, where is he? I know he's here. Here he is, Bard the Bowman, played by Luke Evans. Now, I loved Bard. I wasn't sure how I would feel about him from the get-go. Um, I wasn't totally on board with the character design. I wasn't totally on board with him being such a swashbuckler, as we see in some clips. Um, uh, okay, before I get into that, I will address this one question. This may be a little off topic, but do you know whether Peter Jackson has the rights to the Silmarillion at all? I have heard him talk often about drawing on it for the Lord of the Rings. He can draw upon it, but as far as like adapting the Silmarillion itself, those rights still rest solely with the Tolkien estate, and they are not going to let them go anytime soon. So, after The Hobbit, There and Back Again, that may be the last time that we take a journey into Middle Earth cinematically. So, end of an era, folks. Kind of sad. Um, uh, Flies and Spiders was my favorite chapter as a kid. Well, then you won't be disappointed. Uh, it was they did a great job with that in this movie. Um, so okay, back to Bard. Yeah, so I was not totally on board with Bard to begin with. Like I said, I didn't like the design too much. I didn't like the swashbuckling too much. Oh, where should we look for Peter Jackson's cameo in Desolation of Smaug? In the very first shot. That's all I'm saying. Uh, and it's pretty obvious. You won't miss it this time. Uh, uh, so I so I wasn't totally on board with Bard initially. Having seen him in the movie, however, I'm totally on board with him. I thought Bard and Luke Evans' character was, or Luke Evans' performance of as Bard was fantastic. They do a great job of expanding his character. He's he's kind of like a revolutionary, so to speak, because Lake Town is a very dreary place that is under the iron thumb of the master of Lake Town, who is played by Stephen Fry, and he's fantastic. But then Stephen Fry is great in just about everything he does. So of course he brings his A game to this. I didn't feel there was enough of him, but what was there was fantastic. Um, so so Bard himself, he's a bit of a rabble rouser. He's a bit of a revolutionary. He doesn't really want to go along with the master of Lake Town and his draconian rules. Um, but at the same time, his goals or his vision is always to the preservation and the protection of Lake Town, because in his mind, there is nowhere else for his people to go. If something should happen to Lake Town, then everybody's lost. And so he will move hell or high water to make sure that Lake Town is safe. Uh, I would, just a question to you guys in the chat: Tolkien books versus PJ movies. That is a humongous discussion that probably shouldn't go on in the chat just because everything will get buried and I'll miss a lot of questions. It's a fantastic discussion and one that I feel that we should address at some point in a full episode of Torn Book Club, which I'm sure we will do at some point. But for now, let's not get into that too much because really that is a humongous topic, and I'd like to give it the attention that it deserves. Um, so Bard. I'm sorry, I keep getting distracted here. It's so weird doing this with a chat going on at the same time, especially such an active chat. Um, so so what I like about Bard is that he is his objective is always to make sure that Lake Town is safe. How much do we get of Girion? That ties right to Bard. We do have a flashback to Girion. For those of you who may not know, Girion is he's an ancestor of Bard's who was there in Dale when Smaug attacked. And we do have an extended flashback with him. I won't say too much about it. It's very well done. It shows us, it establishes the Black Arrow. It establishes why Bard is so strongly protective of Lake Town as he is. It establishes a very interesting family connection to Bard, and establishes this. It establishes a connection between Bard, his history, and Smaug, and why Bard kind of flips out when he realizes who Thorin is and what he plans to do. And we see that a little bit in the trailers with him sort of defiantly screaming at Thorin, he cares for nothing but his own desire, and that's when he realizes what Thorin is about to do and the chaos that he could potentially unleash on Lake Town. And so I thought Luke Evans did a fantastic performance. He's a very protective, compassionate person. He's a single father of 3, which may or may not jive with the text as much, but I thought it worked to really humanize his character and give him some depth. And his children are also not just like there in the corner as window dressing. They actually play like rather significant roles in the movie, and I really liked that. I don't know if someone already asked this, but I am late here. Is there very little Beorn in this movie? Yes, we did discuss Beorn already. There isn't as much of him as I would have liked, but what's there is good. Hopefully we'll get more in the extended edition. Do we see Elrond, Galadriel, or Saruman? We don't. There's very little of the White Council in this. I can't. There is some. I won't say how or where because again, that hasn't really been alluded to in any of anything that's been posted online. So I'm going to leave that out of the discussion for now. We get a little bit, not much. I have mixed feelings about Bard's widowerhood. I think he can be made compelling without being a widower. I think it would have been cool to add his wife into the story. Well, that's a very good point, Temple, and I sort of feel it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You can definitely make his character compelling either way. They chose to do it with him being a widower, and I thought it worked just as well. I think it would have worked just fine had his wife been there. I don't feel that it changed the dynamic too much. It was I felt that it was more of a subjective choice on the writer's part to do it that way. I thought it worked. Others may not. They may feel that it detracts from him or tries to pull on our heartstrings a little too much. But for my part, I thought it worked, and I thought it helped to further build his motivation as a protector type character, which we will definitely see more of in There and Back Again. So that's Bard, that's Lake Town. So now we come to the moment you've all been waiting for, and that is Smaug, the title character, the dragon, the one we've been waiting 2 movies to see. Does Smaug live up to expectations? In a word, yes. Smaug is amazing. I say this wholeheartedly, completely fan geek out moments all around. When I saw Smaug fully realized on screen for the first time, my jaw dropped. This was better than I ever could have expected, and my expectations were high. Smaug is a wonderful character. They expand him much more. Okay, before we get too much into Smaug, one more question about Bard. Do his children fight in this one, especially Bane? Yes. Bane actually plays a very crucial role in the movie. Again, can't say how, but yes, they're not just there. They actually do play roles in the movie. Do you see? Okay, now we're going into Smaug. Do we get to see all of his body? Yes. Everything you imagine you would see, you see. We see full shots of Smaug. We see him moving. We see him flying. We see him breathing fire. We see him crashing through Erebor. It's everything. It's absolutely everything. Do we see him speaking? I mean, do you see his mouth move? That's actually a very good question, because one of the big reveals at the fan event a few weeks ago was that we hear the spiders talking, but only after Bilbo puts on the ring. And so, and that was something that we discussed. Would Smaug be treated the same way? That we only hear him speaking after Bilbo puts on the ring, or do we see his mouth move? And the answer to that is no. We see Smaug's mouth move, but he also speaks right away whether or not Bilbo is wearing the ring, because there are certain points in the conversation where Bilbo is not wearing the ring, and Smaug can still speak to him. And the lip movement. This is where Smaug shines greater than anything I've seen. Is that, and Benedict Cumberbatch has shown this, that has shown clips of him doing motion capture with his face. So you see pictures of his face with all the dots all over it. Is Smaug in it a lot or only a little? A lot more than I was expecting. Okay, please go back 45 seconds. I don't even remember what I was talking about 45 seconds ago. I'm just plowing along here. I believe the ads will just interrupt the stream and then pick up where it left off. So as I was saying, we see a lot of clips of Benedict Cumberbatch doing facial motion capture. And there is a very good reason for that, because Smaug's face is very expressive, and it works so well. Because what we have in this is we have a is Smaug completely independent, or is there any allegiance to Sauron? I can't say that there's any allegiance to Sauron. What I will say is that this Smaug, and this is to the point that I was just about to make, is that In the books, we have a Smaug that really has been asleep for a very long time, doesn't really know or care about the world outside. He's aware that Thorin is probably coming to reclaim his throne, um, and in this, Smaug is much more aware of what's going on outside. Um, he's even fairly aware of the ring. Um, do you guys have a YouTube page? And if so, post your live stuff here.